Have you ever looked at your blood pressure reading, seen a good number, and thought, great, everything must be fine? What if I told you that some of the most important warning signs have nothing to do with the number on the screen? Because every year, thousands of adults over 60 take their blood pressure medication exactly as prescribed, and still end up dealing with symptoms they never expected. Swollen ankles, a cough that won't go away, unexpected dizziness, muscle weakness, strange fatigue, and the most surprising part? Many people never realize their medication may be involved. They blame aging, stress, poor sleep, or simply getting older. And that's where problems begin. A few years ago, I spoke with a 72-year-old man named David. David did everything right. He never missed a dose. He exercised regularly. He followed his doctor's advice. And his blood pressure numbers looked excellent. But every evening, he noticed something strange. His shoes felt tighter. His legs felt heavier. And he started worrying that something serious was happening to his heart. The answer turned out to be something he never expected. And his story is far from unique. If you're taking Amlodipine, Losartan, or Lisinopril, there are several important things you need to understand. Not because these medications are bad. In fact, they help millions of people live longer, healthier lives. But because understanding your medication can help you avoid mistakes that many people make without even realizing it. In today's video, we're going to talk about the warning signs people ignore, the symptoms people misunderstand, and the medication mistakes that can quietly create problems long before anyone notices. And stay with me until the end, because the most important lesson has nothing to do with blood pressure itself. It has everything to do with whether your medication actually fits your body. Before we continue, let me know in the comments, which medication are you taking right now? Amlodipine, Losartan, Lisinopril, or something else? And if you enjoy straightforward health information designed for adults over 50, subscribe and turn on notifications. Now, let's start with the first thing almost nobody explains clearly enough. Before we talk about side effects, I want you to understand one thing that changes everything. Amlodipine, Losartan, and Lisinopril may all be prescribed for high blood pressure, but they are not the same medication. Not even close. And that's where many people get confused. They assume all blood pressure pills work the same way. So when a new symptom appears, they don't know what to make of it. They start guessing. And guessing can be dangerous. Think of it this way. Imagine 3 people trying to lower the temperature in a house. One opens a window, one turns down the thermostat, and one starts a fan. Same goal, different method. That's exactly how these medications work inside your body. Amlodipine relaxes blood vessels directly. Lisinopril affects a hormone system that controls blood vessel tension and fluid balance. Losartan works on a similar system but through a different pathway. The destination is the same, lower blood pressure, but the journey is completely different. And because the journey is different, the warning signs are different too. This is something Robert learned the hard way. Robert was 74 years old, a retired electrician, very practical, very independent. A few weeks after starting a blood pressure medication, he noticed something wasn't quite right. He felt different. Not sick, not injured, just different. Some days he felt more tired. Other days he felt slightly off balance when standing up. Nothing dramatic, nothing that seemed worth mentioning. So he ignored it. Weeks passed. The symptoms continued. Eventually his wife asked a simple question. Did this start before or after your new medication? Robert stopped and thought about it. For the first time, he connected the dots. And that's the problem. Many people know the name of their medication. Many people know the dose. But they don't know what changes to watch for. They don't know which symptoms are common, which symptoms are serious, or which symptoms deserve a phone call. And when people don't understand the pattern, they often make one of 2 mistakes. They panic over something manageable, or they ignore something important. Neither one helps. The goal isn't fear. The goal is awareness. Because once you understand how these medications behave, you stop being surprised by your body. And when you stop being surprised, you start making better decisions. Now let's talk about the medication that causes one of the most misunderstood side effects in blood pressure treatment. A side effect that makes thousands of people think they have a heart problem when the real explanation is sitting in their medicine cabinet. And it often begins with something as simple as a tight pair of shoes. Now let's talk about Amlodipine. Because if you're taking this medication, what I'm about to tell you could save you months of unnecessary worry. One of the most common side effects of Amlodipine is also one of the most misunderstood. And it often appears so gradually that people never suspect the medication. It starts small. A sock leaves a deeper mark around your ankle. Your shoes feel tighter in the evening than they did in the morning. Maybe your lower legs look slightly puffier than usual. At first, most people ignore it. Then, they start asking questions. Am I gaining weight? Is my heart getting weaker? Are my kidneys having problems? Those concerns are completely understandable, but sometimes the answer is much simpler. Let me tell you about Michael. Michael was 77 years old and had been taking amlodipine for about 2 months. His blood pressure looked fantastic. In fact, it was the best it had been in years. His doctor was pleased. His family was relieved. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. Except for one thing. Every evening, Michael noticed his ankles looked larger than they had that morning. Not dramatically, just enough to make him uncomfortable. At first, he blamed the weather. Then he blamed salt. Then he convinced himself it was simply part of getting older. But the swelling kept coming back, day after day, week after week, and eventually he became convinced something serious was wrong. What Michael didn't know was that amlodipine can sometimes cause fluid to collect around the ankles and lower legs. And this is exactly why the symptom creates so much confusion. Because everything else may look fine. Your blood pressure improves. Your lab tests may be normal. Your heart may be functioning perfectly well. Yet the swelling continues. That's why so many people assume the problem must be something else. Now listen carefully. Not every swollen ankle is caused by amlodipine. And not every person who takes amlodipine develops swelling. But if swelling appears after starting the medication or after increasing the dose, it deserves attention, not panic. Attention, because sometimes the solution is surprisingly simple. What worries me most isn't the swelling itself, it's what happens afterward. Many people stop taking the medication without telling anyone. Others begin skipping doses when they plan to leave the house. And little by little, blood pressure control starts falling apart. The symptom wasn't the biggest danger. The silence was. And unfortunately, amlodipine isn't the only medication that creates confusion. Because the next medication on our list causes a symptom that many people mistake for allergies, dry air, acid reflux, or even aging itself. And some people live with it for months before realizing the real cause is sitting in their pill organizer. Now let's move to Lisinopril. Because one of the most frustrating side effects linked to this medication doesn't usually arrive with a warning. And that's exactly why so many people miss it. I'm talking about the famous Lisinopril cough. But here's what most people don't realize. This cough doesn't always start right away. Sometimes it appears within days, sometimes after a few weeks, and sometimes it doesn't show up for months. That's what happened to James. James was 70 years old and had been taking Lisinopril for nearly 4 months. Everything seemed fine. His blood pressure had improved. His follow-up visits looked good. And then one night, he noticed a slight tickle in his throat. Nothing serious, nothing alarming, just a minor irritation. A few days later, he found himself clearing his throat more often. Then came the nighttime coughing. At first, he blamed allergies. Then he blamed dry winter air. Then he thought maybe he was coming down with a cold. Weeks passed. The cough didn't go away. His sleep became worse. His energy dropped. And every morning, he woke up feeling exhausted. He bought cough drops. He changed air filters. He tried allergy medications. Nothing worked. Finally, during a routine appointment, his doctor asked a simple question. When did the cough begin compared to when you started Lisinopril? James sat quietly for a moment. He had never connected the two. And that's exactly what happens to thousands of people every year. They spend months treating the wrong problem because nobody explained what to watch for. Now here's something extremely important. A typical Lisinopril cough is usually annoying. It can affect sleep. It can affect quality of life. But it's usually not dangerous. The symptom that deserves immediate attention is something completely different. And I need you to remember this. If you ever develop swelling of the lips, swelling of the tongue, swelling of the face, or difficulty breathing or swallowing, that is not something to monitor for a few days. That is not something to wait until Monday to discuss. That is an emergency. Although rare, medications like Lisinopril can sometimes trigger a serious reaction called angioedema. And when it happens, time matters. So remember the difference. A cough may require a conversation. Swelling of the tongue or throat requires urgent medical attention. And now we're about to discuss something that surprises almost everyone. Because the next risk often starts in the grocery store, not the pharmacy. And it can quietly affect the rhythm of your heart long before you realize anything is wrong. Now let's talk about Losartan. And honestly, this may be one of the most overlooked dangers in this entire video. Because it doesn't usually start with a symptom. It starts with a healthy decision. A decision people make every day, believing they're helping themselves. The issue is potassium. Now, when most people hear that word, they immediately think, I don't take potassium supplements, so I'm probably fine. But potassium doesn't just come from supplement bottles. It's hiding in places many people never expect. Salt substitutes, electrolyte drinks, sports hydration powders, certain nutrition shakes, heart-healthy seasoning blends, and even some products specifically marketed to older adults. That's why this catches so many people by surprise. Let me tell you about Walter. Walter was 76 years old. After a routine checkup, he decided it was finally time to take his health more seriously. He reduced sodium, started reading food labels, began cooking more meals at home, and switched to a popular salt substitute because he believed it would be better for his heart. He felt proud of himself. His family was proud of him. He thought he was doing everything right. What Walter didn't realize was that many salt substitutes replace sodium with potassium. And because he was already taking Losartan, the extra potassium slowly began adding up. At first, he noticed occasional fatigue. Then came muscle weakness. Some days, his legs felt heavier than normal. A few weeks later, he experienced strange fluttering sensations in his chest. Nothing severe, nothing dramatic, just enough to make him uneasy. When blood work was finally checked, the answer became clear. His potassium level had climbed much higher than expected. The medication wasn't the problem. The combination was. And that's what makes stories like Walter's so frustrating. He wasn't careless. He wasn't ignoring medical advice. He was actually trying to be healthier. Nobody had connected the dots for him. And this is where many people get into trouble. They assume that if something is sold in a grocery store, a pharmacy, or a health food aisle, it must automatically be safe. Unfortunately, that's not always true. When you're taking medications like Losartan and sometimes Lisinopril, potassium becomes something worth paying attention to. Not fearing, not obsessing over, paying attention to. Because some of the most serious medication problems don't happen because people break the rules. They happen because people never knew the rules existed. And speaking of hidden dangers, the next one catches people when they're least prepared. It often happens during a stomach bug, a hot summer week, or a period of dehydration. And for many seniors, it's the moment they realize that the same medication that helped them yesterday can affect them very differently today. And now we come to the most important lesson in this entire video. The lesson that ties everything together. The lesson most people don't hear until they've already had a problem. Here it is. The best blood pressure medication is not the one that gives you the lowest number. It's the one you can take safely, consistently, and comfortably for years. Because blood pressure treatment is not a sprint, it's a long journey, and that's where many people get confused. They become focused on the number, the reading, the monitor, the chart, and they forget about the person looking at those numbers. Let me tell you about Richard. Richard was 79 years old. His blood pressure looked excellent. Every appointment produced good numbers. Every report looked encouraging. From the outside, everything seemed perfect. But there was a problem. Richard wasn't sleeping well. He was feeling lightheaded more often. And after a bad stomach virus, he continued taking his medication exactly the same way he always had. A few days later, he nearly fainted while walking from the kitchen to the living room. Thankfully, he wasn't seriously injured. But the experience changed the way he thought about his medication. And honestly, it changed the way I explain medications to patients too. Because the medication wasn't the villain. The problem was that nobody had taught Richard how illness, dehydration, and changing health conditions could affect the way his body responded to the same prescription. That's the lesson I want you to remember. Amlodipine, Losartan, Lisinopril. These are not dangerous medications when they're used correctly. In fact, they help millions of people protect their hearts, kidneys, blood vessels, and overall health. But powerful medications require understanding. If you're taking amlodipine, pay attention to swelling, dizziness, and changes that affect your daily comfort. If you're taking lisinopril, pay attention to persistent cough and know the difference between an annoying symptom and a true emergency. If you're taking Losartan, respect potassium, hydration, and the importance of regular blood work. And for all three medications, remember this. Side effects are not weakness. They are information. Dizziness is information. Swelling is information. A cough is information. Changes during dehydration are information. Your job is not to diagnose yourself. Your job is to notice patterns and speak up early. Because too many people believe being a good patient means staying quiet. It doesn't. A good patient pays attention. A good patient asks questions. A good patient understands that silence can turn a manageable problem into a serious one. And before we finish, I want you to remember one final thought. Fear grows when people don't understand what's happening, but understanding changes everything. Once you understand why symptoms happen, why blood tests matter, why dehydration matters, and why medication interactions matter, you stop making decisions based on fear. You start making decisions based on knowledge. And that's where real safety lives. Not in panic, not in denial, in understanding. If this video helped you, share it with someone who takes blood pressure medication. There's a very good chance they need this information too. And let me know in the comments, which medication are you currently taking? Amlodipine, Losartan, or Lisinopril? And what has your experience been like? Your story might help someone else who is going through the same thing. And if you enjoy practical health information for adults over 50, subscribe and join us for future videos. Thank you for watching, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.